Hello again. Still working on that intro. Jerzy Drozd, cartoonist and teaching artist. And it's Monday again, which means it's time for another drawing live stream. And what am I drawing today? I should have pulled up the alternate image. Oh my gosh. That'll teach me to not be prepped. I'm still waking up. There we go. I'll pull this up. And let's see if I can do... Can I share my screen? I can share my screen. I know how to do that. But so you see this image. This is something I actually drew for a Lean Into Art 2-minute practice some time ago. I want to say like 6 months ago. And I never finished it. The challenge was to like create one drawing 2 minutes at a time. And I don't remember how many sessions I checked in on. It might have been like 14 minutes, 15 minutes. I don't know, maybe probably more than that. But I landed on this. And I thought, well, I'm going to watercolor it eventually. Like the original goal was during that 2-minute practice session of checking in this drawing 2 minutes at a go, I was going to actually watercolor it too, and I didn't. So I was setting up some stuff in my office. I came across this drawing, and I was like, hey, actually, let's finish watercoloring this. But then I thought, well, let's see if we could do a quick comparison between Clip Studio Paint watercoloring and analog watercoloring. So that's what I'm doing today. I already did the Clip Studio Paint version, which maybe at the end of the stream, I'll bring it up if I finish this in time. At the very least, I'm going to do a side-by-side comparison on my Patreon and ask people to vote on which one they prefer there. And I'm probably actually, now that I think about it, I'm probably going to do some touching up of the Clip Studio Paint one after I'm done with this, from what I learned from this. So now it's time to get going. Let's dive in and do this. Who are these characters? If you are new to the stream, well, there's Baron Von Bear, and there's Pickles, and there's Taft from 2 different mini comics that I made over the years. And my cat is walking on the desk. Martha, my heart, go that way. I left the door to my office open today, just as an experiment to see what would happen. I'm doing all sorts of experimentation today. I'm going to clean off the palette of my watercolor. And I'm going to need a clean space to put some yellow on here because we're going to have like the yellow light of the fire, yellow orangish light of the fire going on. Hello, Sean. Good to see you again. You've been showing up to these pretty regularly. Oh my goodness. I appreciate that. It's always good to have company when I'm doing this. I mean, I can vamp, but it's better to have somebody to react to. Get a lot of yellow in here. I'm running, pardon me, I'm running a number of experiments over the next month or so. Chris Schweitzer, who, if you don't follow him online, I recommend that you do. He's a great artist, and also I think he has a great art philosophical mind without being kind of big or pretentious about it. He's a guy who likes to wonder, and I love that about him. He showed this experiment off recently where he was trying to watercolor an entire book, but he couldn't make the characters pop. Oh, hey, Reed Fisher. He couldn't make the characters pop the way he wanted to with watercolor, so he left the backgrounds all watercolored and he colored the characters digitally, and it had this wonderful like animated look. It looked like the way, you know, in like classic Disney films, the backgrounds were all gouache or acrylic, but then the characters were like not even cell shaded. They were just like flat tones, right? It really looked just dynamic and visually very interesting. I'm like, I got to try that. But then I got to thinking, I wonder what would happen if I did a drawing, did all the values just in ink wash or just black watercolor, and then took it into Clip Studio Paint and dropped in flat colors underneath. What would happen then? So I want to play around with this a little bit and see if I can land on something that's really fast and easy to do. That that looks really rich. This whole Baron von Bear thing has been like a ongoing experiment in like trying to find new efficiencies and speed. There we go. Nice and watery. Okay. I don't know. Should I have done this before I started the stream? Maybe. Okay. Water brushes, watercolor, ink drawing. Let's go. And pray my cat doesn't jump up here again. I need to get tight on this. You're in a morning schedule as of lately, so for deadlines and such, well, that's a good problem to have. Glad my schedule can align with the streams. I get a lot out of them creatively and personally. Thank you, Sean. I am so glad to hear that. Hearing that they have utility to somebody is like the absolute kryptonite to my deep inner fear that this is narcissistic. So thank you for that. Okay. Let's start working on Taft's colors. This first part of the drawing is always where like the real nervousness kicks in hard. I feel like it's like this for just about every project I do. That sense of like, well, I don't want to trip right after I start. Let's get some yellow in there. Come on, green. There we go. I might need to switch to my smaller brush now. I don't know why I'm using this big one. Not doing much chatting right now because I'm actually like kind of. This is like a. I don't want to say this is delicate stuff. It's not. I'm getting kind of focused on not making these shadows too dark. Actually, that's pretty good. Looks good right there. Oh, thank you, Mad Cat Art. That's interesting to hear because I was kind of wondering about that myself because I know a lot of like artists that I follow will do the time lapse video with a sort of essay happening over top of it. And I think those are cool. But to be perfectly honest, I feel like when I look at it, I'm like, that looks like a lot of work. Because you're doing the recording of the thing while then like you have to like set, and I've done this myself. And then you have to, what's it called? Set the speed on it, like, find out how long the time lapse actually is. Okay, that's about 20 minutes. Okay, now I got to do a 20-minute essay. I'm going to do a 20-minute essay about it. Now I got to record that, and then I got to put those two things together. Then I got to export it. It's like, my goodness, this is putting your hand on it so many times. Like I said, I've done it, and I just felt like, man, I'm touching this thing a lot. And the thing I love about doing this live is I get to practice this like sort of classroom improvisation of like when I'm talking with my students about like what I think about my art, about what I think about art. I don't really talk about my art with them as much, but I also get to like the recording's done after an hour. I don't have to touch it again if I don't want to, unless something like really egregious happens, like if I fall out of my chair, like suddenly vomit on screen. But that'd be a spectacle. I guess I'm making a lot of cases lately for this idea of efficiency. And I know why that is, because like lately I just haven't had a ton of time. Like the only reason I'm managing to show up for these art streams is because I did, time blocking. Where like I made a non-negotiable item on my calendar. Like, okay, I'm committing to showing up at this time to do this. I see. Okay, that makes sense to me, Sean. Is that like there'd be like value for like seeing the artist work live in that by not speeding it up, you can actually watch how they're doing it a little bit more closely than yeah. Oh, that's too much purple. See that? There we go. There's some artist technique at work. When the artist throws down too much purple. I might have overworked that a little bit. Just a bit. Yeah, I'll leave it be for now. All right, what do I want to do next? Oh, I didn't do Taft's backpack. Let's get a little bit of blue in there. Grab some of my indigo. There we go. I don't know why I avoid using black so much. That's an interesting thing to notice as I'm working. I just started using some black to put on this like cast iron skillet in the background. I realized I very rarely mix black in with my colors. All right, so now the next question is, do I move on to the other characters or do I start working on the background? I guess I'm going to move on to the other characters. Let's start working on Pickles. Maybe a tiny, the teeniest bit of purple in there, just a touch. I'm going to try to drive my brush just a tiny bit. There we go. I don't even know how much that's showing. Oh, cool. Mad Cat, I'm glad to hear that. You're talking about the Lean Tart cast where we did the mini workshop episode, like how to speed up your flatting in Clip Studio Paint. So that worked on the iPad too, huh? I know. I mean, I understand intuitively that the iPad version is the same as the desktop version, but it's just like almost a decade with the iPad being like a different interface. It's like it's still hard to believe that like the app is exactly the same between the two versions. And this is one of those things where it's like I'm reminded of how I didn't get a Nintendo Wii until like I want to say like 4 years after it had been out. and I just was so out of touch with what was happening in the world of gaming. I remembered the news from the first couple of weeks that the Wii was out, where like it was really hard to get it. And I remember when my wife and I were like, "Well, let's finally get one," and then like we both were like, "Are they still available? Can you get them? I heard they were in short supply." I'm like, "Oh yeah, that news is 4 years old." So like I feel like that's part of what's at work. But I'm like, "Can you do the same thing on the iPad?" Yeah, there's been improvements. I am so glad to hear that worked. That was useful. How are you finding Clip Studio now that you're working on it a little bit more, Mad Cat? Like, name one thing that you think is cool, one thing that's like, ugh. Get this back in the shot. There we go. How are we doing on time? We're going 21 minutes. Not too bad. Trying to get this to turn into a crimson. Whoa, whoa, whoa. There we go. The tool that closes the gaps. Oh my gosh, yeah, yeah. So what Mad Cat's referring to is, I think it's the expand line. I'd have to open up Clip Studio Paint to remember what the tool's called. I think it's the expand line tool, thicken line. And when you've got transparent pixels between a couple of different fills, if you just drag that tool over top of where the transparent pixels are, it automatically expands the pixels of each color grouping, and they just fill the spaces. So, yeah, my former student, now professional colorist, Aaron Polk, showed me that trick. And I was in a classroom. We were co-teaching a class together. And while the kids were all working, and we were doing the thing where you walk around and just like sort of check in on the students, Aaron's like, well, while they're working, everybody seems to be into what they're doing. Let me show you this trick I learned. And once he showed it to me, I made a noise that made all the kids in the room come running over to Aaron's computer. Like, what just happened? Something amazing happened over here. I was, yeah, that's a big deal, man. Okay, I'm going to do something daring. A little bit of a colder color right on the edge of Pickle's face there. I don't know if I overdid it. I might have. Let's get that kettle. Not to get all uphill both ways, barefoot in the snow about it, but my first comic where I did any digital work on it was in 2001, 2002. Oh my gosh. So 20 years, almost 20 years ago. So I can get a little barefoot uphill both ways about it. And I remember I was doing my flats with a mouse. A mouse. And I was using it was in Photoshop. I forget what version of Photoshop it was. But I was using the select tool. So the lasso tool, but like the polygonal lasso. And I was going click, 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 click. And it was just such an immense drag. All right. I forgot to do Pickle's little satchel. Too much. Now let's see. Can I paint the Great Baron von Bear here? How many space set aside to put his base tone on my palette? What color are you going to mix with his fur, Jerzy? Purple, of course. What do I always mix? This is by no means for any kind of like intellectual, well thought out and constructed reason. It's just I notice it always works. It's a habit I've got. Possibly to my detriment. Oh, Mad Cat. So that's actually something that would be really helpful to me in determining what mini workshops to do. Rob and I have a list of potential ones to do, but I'd be curious, like, if there's any specific things that you find the most frustrating, challenging about diving in. I mean, I'm happy to, just go through my list, but if there's anything specific that you have been running into where you're like, ugh, it's not clicking, I'd be glad to address those on the show. I mean, I'm by no means a 10th degree black belt at Clip Studio Paint, but I spend a lot of time with it, and I've found a lot of ways to make it more efficient for me. So, I mean, you can always email me. It's just my name at Gmail. Or message me on Instagram. The only places I really don't check in a lot are Facebook and Twitter. I mean, I post to them, but I mostly just like use an app to do cross posting, because I got to draw the line someplace in terms of like where I spend my time. So sometimes people will message me on those platforms, and I just won't get back to them for a long time because I just don't check. Some of the things that we've been talking about doing is like maybe like how to create or alter a brush, how to use the ruler tools in Clip Studio Paint. I'm trying to keep these things very bite-sized. They're called mini workshops, so I'm just trying to focus on one little thing. Like, for instance, flatting. What's one way that you can make flatting easier? Let's get his wisps in here. Okay, I need to look up an image to remember what color his wisps are, or where they go, rather. I know the colors of his wisps, but I just don't remember which chamber of his staff houses each one. It's right there on my screen. Look at that. It's right above me. Oh, my gosh, Jerzy, look up. Look up. Oh, yeah, there you go. Violet goes here. Whoops, too much paint. Too much paint. Oh, my goodness gracious, Golly G. Get that out of there. There we go. Okay. And blue is next, I think. Blue is at the top right. Green is top left. Got it. Let's do green real quick. That's a jack-up moment. Oh, man. Now, that would be something, wouldn't it? Wouldn't it be something to have Jaga be able to show up and give you at least a hint at what you're supposed to be doing? Now, a psychiatrist or a psychologist would probably say, well, yeah, that's part of your psyche doing that, like pointing you at things that you're obsessed with or concerned about or can't let go of. Fair enough. Okay. But it'd be better if it was more concretized in the form of an old cat man who shows up in a cool transition with a flash of his cape and then really cool, like, heroic music playing while he lets you know that the Snarf is the most gentle creature in the universe. Need a lot of paint for this next part. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in, I'm going to wet this all down. And there's like a little blue paint sort of still in my brush, but I'm going to paint this blue anyway, so it's okay. If I want it to give the impression of like a moonlit night. So it'll be like a greenish blue below, and hopefully a little bit more pale yellow towards the top. That's what I'm going to shoot for. We'll see if I get there. Okay. Now comes the blue. Just fade it from the bottom. Add a little bit of green to it. A little tiny bit. So I don't know if you've caught me doing this as I'm talking to myself. Like you'll hear me stutter or stop before I say Jersey. I've been teaching a class recently where the naming convention the school observes is Mr. or Mrs. last name. And I always, when I'm doing a residency or school visit, I always try to honor their local customs. And so I've been going by Mr. Drozd. And so when I'm doing my lessons, I do the same kind of like self-talk to model the exercise for the students. And so I've been saying a lot lately, oh, but Mr. Drozd. So that's why I've been sort of stammering when I get to that part. It's a little too saturated. I'm going to pull out some of that. Okay. And now one last little pass of, let's get some indigo in there. Oh, come on, indigo, work with me. We're getting there. How much time do I have? 20 minutes? Can I finish in 20 minutes? Oh, the drama. Where am I going to put this? I'm going to put this here. What's going on? My brush. I'm going to leave that be for and let that dry a little bit. Oh, what do I want to do next? How about the ground? I'm going to do a greenish brown. Like sort of a dirty, muddy turf. Get some more brown in it. I don't want Taft to disappear into this drawing. So for most of us, it's the beginning of the week. Is there anything that we're excited about happening this week? Anything we're looking forward to? For many of us in the United States, it's a bunch of snow removal. I can tell you that I'm excited about finishing this painting and then holding it up to the digital version and seeing what I like better about each. Okay, time to get the purple in. Get my ground color made. There we go. Too opaque. Okay, I'm getting a smaller brush now. What else am I excited about this week? Excited to figure out what we're going to do for Lean Into Art. So we're going to be recording or streaming a creative work chat and recording a mini workshop. Yeah, when we say what we're going to get excited about this week, it very rarely involves, I'm going to go to this place and see this thing, right? So, WandaVision, I keep hearing about it. I have not tried it yet. All my students are telling me, what the heck is wrong with you? Why aren't you watching it? I'm sorry, I have to be judicious about what TV I take in. Not because of out of any kind of sensitivity to anything, but more having to do with the fact that I just don't have time to invest in anything that's going to take too much of my attention. And I understand there's like a lot of speculation about WandaVision. Everybody's got theories. Okay, I haven't done the fire yet or the soup smoke. We're doing on time. 15 minutes. Oh my goodness. Soup smoke. Start up here with nice opaque. And let it get progressively. I'll come back to that fire in a second. I'm going to do the background now. Sean, I'm guessing you're working on some comics pages. Is that what you're working on? You say pages. I assume you mean comics, but perhaps I shouldn't assume. Is it mini comic? Is it a what do they call it? A pamphlet comic? A magazine style comic? Is it a web comic? Graphic novel? Well, actually, let's go ahead and get some of that purple in here now. See, I pre-wet it. This is something I learned in watercolor class. I can just gently sort of tug the color around the image. Ah, slag. There we go. Some client pinups and a comic that has the joys of the 80s and 90s comics cartoons mixed in with living with diabetes. Pretty much me as a superhero. That's cool. I know I've said this in many places, but like one of the things that I love about superhero stories is something that Dan Mishkin pointed me at, is that like they're dress rehearsal for adulthood. I love that aspect of them. And so you can deal with all sorts of universal and very specific ideas and problems that young people will face. Get some more black. There we go. This might have worked better if I had done some we call masking. Still not great at that. I got like this masking pen, like Dick Blick. It's got like a plastic applicator, and it's like you know what watercolor masking is, right? It's like that sticky glue that you stick on the page where you don't want the paint to go. And then you sort of rub it off with your finger afterwards when you've applied your washes. We'll use them a couple times. Probably would have been good for back here where I'm trying to blend some black into this background. Oh, come on, Jerzy. You can do this. Stop it. Stop getting all blotchy. Ay, ay, ay. Oh, it's cool to hear that the character's somebody that you made up when you were younger. That's super fun. I'd made a comic years ago. You might remember Silver and the Periodic Forces, which I like redid in 2005. But it was the very first comic I ever made on my own when I was a kid. And it was really fun to like investigate that idea and see like, okay, what's like the kid whimsy parts to keep and what would I change? Because like I think about that that Eric Glass bit that everybody quotes about like, you know, like what draws you to being an artist is your taste. And it's like acquiring skill is like catching up to your taste. So like probably something when you were like gripped by this, like a lot of us, at least men in and around my generation, report that like it was around 11 years old that they decided, oh, I got to do this stuff. I got to make comics. And so, okay, the aesthetic arrest happened at that time. What were you attracted to at that time? What did you like writing about? Probably there's something in there that is worth salvaging into your adulthood. And keeping alive, actually. Almost there. I knew from the start these trees were going to be indigo. That was something I had figured out ahead of time. I didn't do a whole lot of pre-planning on this. I am really surprised at how much I'm using this big brush. Oh, you and some friends are working on making 10-page stories based on characters you made in elementary school. That is awesome. That is so fun. What I also love about that is baked into this, and I don't know how much of this was on your mind, but there's like this implicit sort of suggestion that you're not afraid of your old work. Something that I feel like all of us artists, or a lot of us artists, have to go through is this period where we look back at our old ideas and go like, oh, that was bad. It's like, well, that was like what you could do at the time. Give yourself a break. It's not fair to say like, oh, me as a 35-year-old is superior to me as a 10-year-old. Well, I got news for you. Your 75-year-old self is coming for you. If that's the way you want to measure things. And I love the idea of us like embracing our childhood sort of whimsy and what's so great, I mean, as somebody who works with 11-year-olds a lot, is what's so great about them is like that their internal editor hasn't kicked in yet, and so like all the ideas are equally valid, and it feels their stuff just feels liberated and fun. It doesn't feel like it's laden with all of that pressure to be clever and smart and skillful. Okay. I think I missed a spot. Why didn't anybody tell me I missed a spot? Okay. Oh, I'm coming up on time, but I want to finish this. I really want to finish this. But Jerzy, you're time blocking. I know. Don't hassle me. I'm talking about Thundercats. This is the part where Tiger would come up to me and say, laws are only laws if everybody obeys them. Otherwise, they're just words. Oh, I'm sorry, Tiger. I'm going to break my rule right now, and I'm going to go a little long. I'm mildly disappointed in you, Jerzy. I know. I'm sorry. I'll come back at you and say, like, pushing boundaries and making mistakes is part of learning, too. Up. Seeing him spotting places where I made mistakes. Actually, that should be yellow. Let's get that yellow out of here. Yellow, I call upon you. All right. Let's get some really dark colors back here. Are we almost there? I think we're almost there. Let me just get some more purple wash on the ground. And I think I'll call it good. I'm really having a hard time with these trees in the background, like staying in the lines here. Having it all meet up. This is where, okay, what I learned today is that doing a little pre-planning on the painting and putting in some masking fluid to mask out areas so I could do a wash like that probably would have been a really good idea. Oh no. Okay. Well, is there anything else left to do? Ah, little bits of yellow put on some of these things. And I got to draw in the wisps with my color pen. Try to create a little bit more contrast around Baron von Bear. There we go. Okay, final leg. Hey, Deirdre. Hope things are well in Australia. Is that right? Am I remembering correctly? You catch me on the tail end of this. Just finishing up this watercolor painting, and as I promised, I think I'm going to show you the digital one too. I did a digital painting of this over the weekend, and now I'm doing a physical one. See how they differ, how they turn out differently. How analog choices move my hand in terms of color choice, shading choice. How I sculpt the characters. Just feels like it's just about done. I'm doing okay now. I was a little groggy when I started. I won't lie. I was a little slow on the draw when I first showed up. Slow on the draw, pardon that expression, for a multitude of reasons. I'm going to try to come in here with a little bit of white gouache. See if I can brighten up that fire just a tiny bit. All right. Did I do it? I'm going to draw in the wisps real quick. Let me get my color pens. All right. Violet. Green. Blue. Where'd you go, blue? And our old friend, orange. And then, let's see if I can get my white pen working. This has been giving me a little bit of trouble lately. Sort of got their eyes in there, right? It's kind of hard to draw that tiny, but. So there is the watercolor one, which I think is done. And I said I would show y'all the Clip Studio one. Let me see if I can pull that up on screen right now. I'm going to add a source. And how about a window capture? And we'll call this, oh, what am I going to call this? There we go. Okay. So there is the Clip Studio version. I'll do it before and after. So this is the one I did this weekend. This is done entirely, like the drawing is the same, but the coloring is done entirely in Clip Studio Paint. And there's the physical watercolor version. It feels to me like the physical one came out warmer. It did. Yeah. I'm going to post both of these on my Patreon, which is right above me, right there. If anybody wants to weigh in on these, what you think. I'll continue to think about, exploring what style I want to go with for this project, if I ever get to do it. And thanks, everybody, for hanging out with me. I'll be back Thursday, 10 a.m. Eastern Time. And I'll be doing more drawings. So there's the links to follow me for everything that I do. Thanks once again. Until next time, I have been Jerzy Drozd, jdrozd.com, Jerzy Drozd on Instagram. Okay, bye.